Hey, everybody, welcome back to another fantastic episode of Whose WordPress Agency Is This Anyway? My name is Kurt Von Onen, and I'm here with my wonderful co-host, Toby Crines. And we have a ton of stuff to go through today. I hope that you find it fun. Toby, welcome to the call.
Thanks, Kurt. So, a friend of mine I was conversing with him earlier today, and the way he explained, I'm interpreting here, but he blew a big sale, like a big sale by my standards. Like the dollar amount was more than I've ever charged, put it that way. And how he blew it, it made me think like our businesses are defined by sales. There's nothing else that defines it more than sales. Did you sell or did you not sell? And it occurred to me that I've done what he did probably many times. And the gist of it is like, usually like, not always, but usually like the more bureaucratic the organization that you're dealing with, the more meetings you're going to have.
Yeah.
Just in the sales cycle, the more they're going to ask of you to for free stuff before they actually pay you or sign any agreement. Free time, free RFP responses, free ideas. And so he's gone through and he's been communicating with me for months now about this because I had actually sent him the lead months ago because I didn't want to do it. I know that that's a thing. Like I was like, I don't want to go to these meetings. So I gave him
A
the
lot of
lead.
baggage. Would you like to do
Yeah.
it?
Yeah. But it was a good lead if you're into that. And so I'm guessing this was like the sixth or seventh meeting that he's had with them. And the gist of it, this is how he explained it to me. He's like, I think I blew it. And I'm interpreting, he sounded like he went in there tired and ornery and pissy.
Mhm.
Have you ever done that, Kurt?
Well, I have. It's amazing because being in business for decades lends a lot of expertise, should we say, right? That people new to industry don't expect. I have a saying in my training, and it is focused on the relationship and the transactions will naturally follow. If you are so focused on transaction, you'll blow the relationship, and the relationship is what makes the sale. So I always say focus on the relationship and the transaction will naturally occur. And yeah, if you're ornery, if you're tired of the BS and another free meeting and what probably happens, especially in these big situations, is you end up spending a bunch of time with soldiers on the ground and you never get to meet the general and get the approval. It just seems like it goes on and on and on. I have shortcut this immensely in my last 15 years of business. I ask people straight up, hey, is the decision maker in this room today? Are we moving forward or not? And I set my expectations accordingly. But that's part of the relationship. If you are hungover, if you're sick, if your kids kept you up all night, if your spouse had you in the hospital, I had a mountain bike race last weekend, 2 weekends ago, and it was a husband and wife coaching duo. And the woman of the couple had an appendicitis, had to go to the hospital in the middle of the night. Well, we didn't need either one of those coaches coming to work with the kids that day. You know what I mean? You haven't slept in
Mm-hmm.
40 hours. Cancel the appointment, reschedule, make sure that you can show up in a good frame of mind because if you are not in the proper frame of mind, you're going to blow it.
Yeah, and I think like that's something that I continually learn. It happened to me earlier this year, and thankfully I had somebody set me straight before I attended the meeting. So I was like, we're not. It's one of these things like we're not quite ready. It wasn't even like I was in a bad mood. It's just like we're not quite ready. And my SEO guy, it was an SEO pitch. He's like, Toby, let's cancel the meeting and postpone it till we're ready. Like, and he was totally right, you know.
Yeah.
And I think what you said is spot on. You're probably better off canceling and rescheduling.
And there are so many ways to do that where you keep pride is a thing, right? And I always say you should put pride in your back pocket. Humility is much more attractive than pride. But still, you don't want to look like a moron, right? So in your case, like you're preparing for an SEO pitch, you're not quite ready. It is so much better to just call the client and say, hey, I know we had an appointment scheduled, but I really want to value your time. And I don't feel like we're properly prepared to execute this meeting at a high level right now. Can we reschedule so we can be more cognizant of the time you're investing with us and make sure we really bring the value? And they're going to go, how are they going to argue with that? They're going to
Right.
go, okay, that was transparent, helpful. They thought about me. Oh, perfect. and then you buy yourself the time, and then you come in and knock it out of the park.
Yeah, I think that maybe the moral of that story is like you might lose 1 out of 100 doing that, but like you're probably only putting yourself in a stronger position.
Yeah. Yeah. And I want to be more forward, I think, here, Toby. I can tell that you're a person that is insightful and self-reflecting and these types of things. I am too, to a certain point. And I think when we tell somebody, hey, I just really wanted to bring some value to you, and I'm not sure we're at our A game right now. Can we reschedule so that when we see you, we bring our A game? I just have a feeling that your A game, when you show up prepared, is probably A plus 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 compared to the competition in your area.
That's
And
a great point. Yeah.
and if I'm just being blunt, part of the strength of dealing with Mañana no Mas is that when Mañana no Mas has a meeting to show you something, I'm showing you something. I'm not wasting your time and talking about, well, what if this and what if that. I'm saying, we did your needs assessment. These were the results of the needs assessment. Here's the statement of work we agreed to, and here's our first version. In a lot of cases, our first version, the customers go, holy crud, because they're used to getting jerked around.
Also, if I can push back a little on this, all that is true. And yet, I found myself on a sales call just a week ago where I was like, what was the topic of this call? Like, why am I here? And it was a legit call like that was scheduled and I was just not prepared. And I feel like on shows like these, like it's easy. Like what people say is like oftentimes like, we're perfect. We never screw this up. But I just want to throw that out there. I was on a call. It went okay. Could have gone way better had I been at all prepared. It was one of these things of like, oh, I'm supposed to be in a meeting in 5 minutes. Who's this person? Like, I just screwed up that way. So I don't know. I just wanted to share that if there's any like, I don't know, inexperienced sales, the WordPress agency owners, like sometimes you have to show up, like just by malfeasance on your end,
What you're describing, though, is really the difference between being an entrepreneur, right? Being an agency owner versus, someone in a cubicle in a corporate setting, right? If I don't have nightmares about it or anything like that, but when I worked at Suzuki, that was a big corporate office, and they had 14, I want to say 14 meeting rooms in that place. And you had to book a meeting room, and then you had to, you had to be there at a certain time and get out at a certain time, and you had to execute this and execute that. But what I learned about working there was they judged you more about how you executed the meeting process than the actual work that was the result of the meeting. It was so bizarre. And then you flip the script and you go, well, I'm an agency owner now, right? And so, yeah, I'm efficient with the meeting, but where my margins come to life is when my processes, form a process that makes a deliverable happen in a timeline that is much more condensed than what the client expects, right? And that's where the margins come to life.
Well, you bring up an interesting point. Like, if I was trying to land a job with Suzuki or some big organization, pretty much every big organization, I think is kind of what you described. Like they care more about appearances than
the actual deliverable.
Yeah. You should keep that in mind too, right?
Yeah. Show up on time, be prepared, present well in the meeting. And then after the meeting, I focus on knocking it out of the park. I've got some really great processes that I use to run our project manage what we do with our different players on the team. And it's funny because people say, what do you really do? And I'm like, well, I'm really a project manager. I'm a much better project manager than I am a website designer. It just happens I work in the web field, but I'm able to orchestrate people from all over the globe on these different things and have everything fall together like a Lego set so that the project is complete when it's due and under budget. So that to me is what people are really coming to me for. All that creative stuff and all that weird talk that people are having now about vibe coding and all this stuff, I think that's like superfluous to what we actually deliver.
That's interesting. I was talking with another friend this week about he's dealing with crappy project manager on an agency. He owns an agency, they're doing work for another agency. And he was like, this is the third project manager I've worked with at this company. The first two were great. This one's new and he sucks. And like, I used to think project manager not long ago, like 5 years ago, I was like, oh, I would hate to be considered a project manager. They make less money. They have no power. They get all the pressures. But it's true. Like it is, if you're an agency owner, it's one way you can make your mark is like if you're a great project manager, you don't have to be great at coding. You don't have to be great at a lot of other stuff, especially if you're going for these bigger contracts, because it's more about the process than it is about the deliverable. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. I can't tell you how many times, especially in the enterprise marketplace, the bigger ticket jobs. And we talked about this on a couple episodes ago. Where we said sometimes the more money, the easier the job. Some of these enterprise jobs, I'll say, oh, well, we're working on this design nuance, and they just go, yeah, we don't care. Where are the courses at? Where's the function? So how do I change a member's grade? Like that's what they care about. And they don't care about, this widget, the shade of blue on this button. This has a drop shadow. Like they don't care about any of that stuff. It seems like they might downstream, but to launch the product, they're more like, we're on a timeline. We made a promise this will be ready to go by such and such a date. How we coming? And it's the small projects, where people have no paying customers yet. They're launching their first course and they're like, I really wanted a different shade of blue with a drop shadow and I want a higher radius on this button. And you're like, your course isn't done yet.
right,
You're selling a course, but you don't have any course content. And like, yeah, but I really want the website to have a certain look and feel.
right.
Yeah, totally.
Well, and anybody who sells every day knows like none of that stuff matters.
None of it matters.
Like it's what you're saying. Like, do they trust me or not? Like,
Yeah. So I know we're off the rails, but on a percentage basis with the clients you work with, how many of them say, wow, I really need to customize the checkout page?
close to 0%.
Well, you are
Because the conversations don't go there. How about you? Like,
it's in the courses space. Because I do support for Lifter LMS, right? So in the courses space, I need to customize this. How do I customize the checkout page? How do I customize the login page? And I'm like, if you've already sold the course,
right,
what is it about the checkout page that you think is going to change their mind about buying your course?
right,
Because the page was designed to convert. So other people that are smarter than you that have paying customers develop this. And you are brand new to the space. You don't have any paying customers yet, but you want to customize all of these, dynamic pages they're templates. They're made a certain way on purpose. And it's the responses are always unique. I'm always amazed because I always say, what about the login page makes you think someone's going to ask for a refund? They already paid.
and rant.
Right.
People, it's not your pricing. It's not your login page. That's the problem.
It's the login
Don't
page.
sell.
It's the login page. They bought the course and the course has value, but this login page is just too much friction.
It's too much friction. Yep. That's funny. Yeah, I always think like just in general, any question, any tech question, I'm always like, how is this making you money if we do it? Like, how does this make you more money if we fix this? Like, and you can insert any question in there.
Well, and I feel like, and I got to remember that we are making a show, Toby. You and I are making a show that is for agencies, people that own agencies. And a lot of these agencies are making marketing products, brochure style websites. So maybe they're not all about conversion. Maybe they're not all about how many people get to the checkout page. A lot of websites don't have those things. But then it still comes to light of, how much of your time as an agency owner is driven by nonsensical nuance as opposed to core features that drive functionality and make your site do what it's supposed to do.
Well, yeah, and exactly. This kind of brings up another thing that I've been experiencing. I have an old house, a house that we just moved out of that we're selling. And we're having like emotional we're in like an emotional low because nobody wants to buy it. And we're like, why not? It's a great house. And it reminded me of there's this idea. I think there's a book called The Messy Middle, but the idea that like when you're deep in a long project, the middle is mucky or messy. Like it's just, and I was thinking like Frodo on Mount Doom. If you read Lord of the Rings, this isn't in the movie, I don't think, but like he's sitting on Mount Doom with Samwise, and he's like, we're in the middle of a great story, and yeah, we might die, but isn't this cool?
Isn't this cool?
And I was thinking like, I think all businesses on all big projects, it gets really messy and mucky, and it's hard for us as like the delivery people to see through it. But I was curious, Kurt, from your perspective, I think in general businesses try to help, like part of our job is to help our clients not see the muck and to kind of like steer their eyes to the things that are important. But how do you communicate the mucky muck with clients? And how do you help them see through the muck in the middle of a big project?
I think that's an unfair question to ask me if we're thinking about parlaying this information to other agency owners, because I authored the book on leadership and stuff like that. So I come down to, I have some people say scripts are nasty, like salespeople that use scripts, like that's nasty. But what I call these is like verbal muscle memory, right? So I have this verbal muscle memory that I use with people. Let's say I'm in the middle of a project and it just seems like you get to like, you got the website, so you got the WordPress tools in, and you got the plugins in, and you've got the basic formatting and configuration done, and you're starting to put in the content. And then the client just starts getting like all fractured, like they're just all over the place. And that's kind of that mucky middle thing, right? A lot of times, and this is the reason that I stopped telling people I was a WordPress agency. I'm not a WordPress agency. I am a business consultancy. And so I say, well, let's get down to brass tacks. What is it that you truly deliver as a business? What are your core ideologies that you deliver as a business? How do you deliver those items, those goods or those services, right? And then as we build the product to message those items out, if they start getting all weird and distracted in the middle of the project, I just say, hey, whoa. Let's gather up, let's circle the wagons, and let's focus again on what your core deliverables are and how this website communicates that. And then I say, my goal is to get you published as soon as possible. And we can always augment, modify, and change as we go. But let's get you to a launch date as quickly as possible with a minimal viable product so that we can start to communicate with your audience. And that seems to get them back on track. Like, because then I go, so let's get back to what are the minimal viable requirements that we need for this project to launch. And that gets them refocused, and we just start to get back on point, and it becomes like SMART goal setting, right? Is it strategic? Is it measurable? Is it achievable? Is it time related? And I just bam, 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 right?
Yeah. And I imagine it's also like self-talk. Like, Kurt, because they're asking all these weird questions maybe in the middle, and you're like, Kurt, what's the goal here? Sometimes, what are we trying to achieve today?
Yeah. What? Yeah, because it's so many times this is so uncanny, but I was on a call today with a client, and they're building a membership learning website, and these membership tools are very confusing because they install a membership tool and most people don't recognize there's nothing in there to manage members in a membership tool. Like these, I shouldn't say membership tools, the community sites. So Fluent Community, Buddy Boss, all these things, they don't have tools that manage the membership side of it. And so you have these tools and they're like, so how does someone get to the news feed? I don't want those people to get to the news feed. They didn't buy the membership. And I'm like, that's because we need a membership tool to be able to manage who gets access to what levels of the site. And you have to break all that down. And the customers start getting like, poof, like fireworks have gone off and the ADHD's kicking in and they're just picking stuff out of the sky.
Yeah.
And that's when I go, whoa. We got to slow this down. Let's put in a membership tool. Who gets access to the community site? Great. We'll run that by tags. We'll run that through the Fluent CRM. We'll do an automation. We'll send an email and they get access to that link. Perfect. We're done. And then they go, oh, how did you do that? I've been doing it for 22 years. Let's just get you to the next problem. This one's solved.
So you've just been having some really smart decisions you've made, just like a process for smart decision making. But what's the worst business decision you've ever made?
I'm not going to share her name because I don't want to get sued. We all do it. I think no matter the size of your business, you're tempted to do it. Like you talk to a client or you're referred to a client. So in this case, I was referred to a client and I didn't want to look foolish in front of the person that made the referral. I wanted to honor that person. And so I gave them too much time on a call and I gave them too much free information. And then they decided I was a genius and wanted to hire me. And the needs assessment wasn't really fully done, but I threw a number out there like, yeah, I can make it happen for this. The person that made the referral actually sidestepped part of the project. And so I should have been going through that person and they should have been the point of contact for the client. But what happened was the client ended up being a direct point of contact with me and then tried to like after the fact say, well, I was under the impression it was going to this, it was going to that, it was going to the other thing. And here's the truth of it. And I'm just going to be blunt and say it. We needed the money, right? So I was like, do I give this person their money back and tell them to hit the skids or do I keep the project? Every time you have that doubt, this is coming from me, give the money back. Figure it out some other way. Give the money back. This woman was incredibly unethical. I want to put this in my disclaimers. I want to do this. I'm going to take this material from this person's website and embed it in my own website. It's like horribly unethical things. And I'm like, I can't do that for you. And then every time I would call her unethical for something, she would get more angry at me. So I built the website. It was fully functional, fully operational. I gave her access to the website. And then she disputed her fee with Stripe and Stripe took all the money. So I did months
Wow.
of work. I took hours and hours and hours of Zoom calls I never should have taken. And I worked with somebody that I thought was a horrible, horrible person. And I did it all in good faith with a smile, thinking at least I'm getting paid and we need the money. And at the end, she stole the work, stole the money, and Stripe never gave it back.
Yeah.
So that was my worst decision because I knew I shouldn't have worked with the person, but I did anyway.
Yeah.
How about you? What's your worst decision?
Yeah, I think it's similar actually in the sense like it's like once you have an established business and you're like doing okay and you think you can make it another month without a whole problem occurring financially.
You're going to buy meat instead of just beans.
Yeah, yeah. And like so I was working and the gist of it is similar. Like I did it for the money. Like and I shouldn't have. Like I knew in my heart and in my head that so I was at a point where I could have walked away. And I stayed on for another 3 months and took on a huge responsibility, just basically continued with a different responsibility and like it didn't, it was just kind of like, yeah, the money was good. They ended up paying, but like at the same time, it was like a regret. And this is the lesson of Moneyball too. At the end, when Brad Pitt's, I don't know if it might just be in the book, but like basically Brad Pitt's sitting there, and the gist is like, you shouldn't do it for the money.
Shouldn't do it.
You should, yeah, doesn't matter how. And he got offered millions and millions, not Brad Pitt, but his character in real life, Billy Bean, got offered millions of dollars to skip. His thing was he skipped college and went straight to the pros. But what he really wanted to do was go to college and party and play baseball at college. So yeah, if you can swing it. Now I'm not saying sometimes you need the money, and you do the best you can. But I think you got to at least listen to your head and heart in those cases. And maybe that when you feel that, maybe it's like about setting better boundaries around the project.
Yeah.
When you feel that.
So I'm going to hit you with a personal question. Hindsight being 2020, if you look back, did you need the money?
No, not. Well, you mean for that project specifically?
Exactly.
No, I didn't.
And that's exactly where my head goes. So
Yeah.
in the moment we panic and we don't allow ourselves to make calm decisions. And that's when we make bungled decisions and moves. So when I look back on this project, by the way, full disclosure, was only $3,000. the amount of Zoom calls alone was worth $3,000, let alone the woman that's doing it. This woman was so greedy and so crazy that she was like a lunatic. The reason I knew that she was going to ask for a refund was the last Zoom call I had with her was in one of those pay by the day motels. Like, she turned on the Zoom call and there was like a tornado had went off in this hotel room. And I'm like, what happened to her office? Where's her house? Where is this woman? You know, and I was like, oh, she's broke and now she's going to ask for her money back. Right. But it's like you see it and you know it. And I foolishly stuck with the project. And looking back, hindsight being 2020, I didn't need that $3,000. I didn't need that $3,000 at all. We just talked on our last episode about how sometimes you fire customers and when you let something go, something better comes along. And right after she got all of her money back from Stripe, I landed like 3 great jobs right after that. And I had the opportunity to take great jobs before that if I wasn't working with her.
Yeah.
You know, we gotta be patient and we got to make smart choices.
And this leads me to a quote somebody said maybe a week or so ago. It says, "At what point do you say even your husband couldn't take your BS and then set them loose?"
Even your husband couldn't take your BS. Would you ever say that to somebody?
I wouldn't. Would you, Kurt?
No, no. I might rephrase it some, but I wouldn't say that. Yeah, when people act nuts, when they act disconnected and crazy, you got to circle the wagons, man, and you got to be direct and be a leader and say, "Hey, as someone that's managing this project, I feel like we're off the rails a little bit. We got to gather this back up." I've worked with projects before. I worked with a wonderful lesbian couple. They were hilarious. And we didn't align on certain beliefs and stuff, but they were hilarious. Like they were into other, like, I'm a Christian. They were into other kinds of religions and things. And then they ended up breaking up through the deal. But I saw it happening. Like I saw like, oh, they're not going to make it. And it's weird when you're just a web person and you're working on a project with a couple, you can tell something's wrong. I was doing one on a beautiful couple from Texas, and they had someone in their family had gotten injured, and that postponed the project for a little bit. And then they're an older couple. One of them started getting a little more sickly, and I was like, this ain't gonna work. This ain't gonna work. And we were so close to launch, and it never launched, right? Divorces, deaths, strokes, heart attacks. I've seen it all.
Oh, yeah.
The divorce ones are hard because it's like, who's in charge of the project then?
Right.
From a selfish perspective, who am I sending these invoices to every month?
There's an agency in town that's going, a bigger agency in town. They're going through a divorce thing with their 2 co-owners. I mean, the owners are married, you know, and I only know because my friend was an employee there, and like, he's like, it's weird, man, because like, one spouse will come and tell him to do something, the other spouse will show up a minute later, be like, don't do that, do this.
Or do that, do this.
He's just like, I'm in the middle of a freaking divorce thing now. Like,
Yep.
could we, maybe this might be the all we have time for today. We left a cliffhanger last week. The question was, is managed WP dying? But over the course of the week, I kind of was thinking about it more deeply. And the question is not, for me, it's not so much, is managed WP dying? That's a question I have. But like, the core of the question is, at what point as an agency owner do you jump ship on a technology that is no longer getting the job done for you? And and so examples for me over the course of time. 15 years ago, HostGator. I jumped HostGator to someone else, and Divi was a core development tool I used to use. I no longer use it. We currently use Basecamp for project management. We're switching to ClickUp, and all of these are big processes, have big processes along with them, because we have employees and 100 websites that we're migrating in some cases. And, so how do you think about infrastructure change like that, like tech infrastructure?
You mentioned one that scares the life out of me, and that is if you as an agency want to migrate 50 or 100 or 200 or 400 websites from one host to another. And I'm going to go back to, hey, if these are brochure websites and you can do like, WP Vivid, Vivid WP, whatever, and just migrate simple sites over, like that's okay, great, perfect, whatever. Have a great day. Enjoy yourself. If you're doing projects that have, shopping carts, courses, e-learning systems in them, community sites, dynamic content where like this person paid a subscription at midnight, but the website was turned off at 12:02 and then turned back on at 6 o'clock in the morning. And then all of those transactions for those 8 hours don't get recorded in the database, right? And then you get all these support emails. It's just managing it is crazy because then you end up having to say, hey, Mr. Customer, we're going to be doing some site maintenance, quote unquote, and you're going to be down for 24 hours. And then you got to pray that you can get everything done in 24 hours. It is difficult. And I'm going to go one step further. I have been working in a host lately. I can't explain it, Toby. Everything is just more difficult. Everything is more difficult. And it's a co-hosted, not co-hosted, it's a co-managed situation. So we're basically subcontracting on this. And it's like everything needs an external cron job set up. Everything needs PHP workers increased. Everything needs, it's like, what is happening? Like the sites don't seem to function well unless we dot every I, cross every T. Whereas in other hosts, I go, slap up the website, put in the tools, add an SMTP. Bob's your uncle. We got a website. And that's just not the same with other tools. And you, as an agency, man, you got to know what you're getting into. You can't just say, how many sites for how many dollars a month and how do I access support and then move everything over. You got to know what you're really stepping into.
I think there's a pretty big difference. So like a lot of those migrations probably need like an internal person. Like ideally it would be like some employee at the company that knows the system. And a lot of times in agency land, you don't have that. We're like external. We're like, just like, yeah, we're going to migrate the site. We don't know the business processes as deeply. Migrated. So I used to work at Lumi Deodorant. I was their CTO and I managed a migration of 300,000 WordPress users to Shopify users. And these are paid subscriptions and stuff.
Yeah.
We did it at noon. This is a funny story too. I was my choice. I'm like, we're doing it at noon. And here's why. And noon on a Monday. I think it was a Tuesday. I'm like, we're doing it. And this was pre-planned and it was intentional because like, how many times have you experienced maybe like, we need you to do this at midnight and you wake up at midnight, you do it, but you're groggy, you miss something, and then you go to bed, and then in the morning there's more problems because you missed those 8 hours or whatever.
1,700 emails.
Yeah. And so I still get flack from it from the Lumi team because I'm like, no, we're doing this at noon on Tuesday. We're going to have a good plan. I'll be fully ready to go. You'll be here to notice any issues. We have everyone on the phone, like at the distribution center, but that, like for a lot of these, I imagine a lot of the sites you would have to migrate if they have a lot of like thousands of users. It's really tough to do externally as an agency.
Yeah. In upgrading, so if you're on certain host packages and you upgrade to a different type of server within their system, that always amazes me, right? Because you can just hit them up on chat and say, oh, I want to move this website to this other, upgrade server. And they just go, hold on, let me look at that for you real quick. And then 10 minutes later, like, okay, it's ready to go. I'm not a host. Like, I'm like, how did that happen so quickly? I go into the website, everything works, everything's 10 times faster. And you go, oh, that was great. But if you got to take that same project and you got to take it from, Cloudways to Kinster to WP Engine or whatever, it's a nightmare moving thousands of users and all their content. And then doing that whole like screenshot exercise, like, okay, does the homepage look the same? Does the about page look the same? Does the contact page look the same? And then let's try and do a make-believe student enrollment with a 99% off coupon. And so we try that, then we go, oh crap, that doesn't work. What's broken? And then you got to go through, okay, SMTP, external cron. You got to make sure everything's in place. And then multiply that by 50 websites in a weekend or something. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's weird that as I thought about that, like the incentive structure, it's really The reason you need an internal person for that migration is like they're incentivized to think through all those problems. Whereas like an external agency like we run, the incentives are just different. Like we're not, even if we got fired, it's probably not the end of our world like it would be if you were an employee there. And they also like every minute we spend on that project is a minute we don't spend on another project.
Yep.
And another client's not getting the attention, the phone call that they need, where, it's tricky. It's really tricky, I think, to navigate as an agency owner.
Yeah. I kind of dread it. I remember when I used to have a ton of stuff on Bluehost back in the day. And I think a lot of agencies start out this way. So if you're in that position, don't go, oh, Kurt's making me feel bad. I'm not trying to make you feel bad. You got to start somewhere. I used to love Bluehost because I could register unlimited URLs and I could throw sites into my hosting account and I could move things around. And they were great for like proof of concept sites. Like if I could throw Lifter LMS in there and I could, put in content and build a course and let people see a sample of what something was going to look like. But sooner or later, I had projects that had more success, more users, and I had to say, okay, I need more bandwidth. I need less caching. I need, because these dynamic sites, if they're heavily cached, run into some problems. And so I ended up having to move some things over to a different host. And that to me was like, oh, this is work. This is difficult. And so now I try really hard to do the research before the decision and then make sure that when I make that decision, I'm locked in for a while.
Yeah. Yeah. Because the stars have read that planfulness in you.
Yeah. And then the other thing to remember, and this is just agency to agency advice. If you choose a host that has a bunch of extra bells and whistles, just remember the people that you're developing these projects for, they don't need those bells and whistles. Like, I don't share everything that my host will do with my clients. There's no way. Like, I'm not going to say, oh, you can have unlimited emails on your URL. Like, I'm just not, I am not babysitting 25 email accounts on, well, I want to have help at my URL, services at my URL, people at my URL, support at my URL. No, you don't. No, you want info at your URL and that's it. That's all you get. That is all you get.
What do you have for you?
Yeah, you can sign up for Google Workspaces. That'll run your email. But I'm very strategic about the way that I manage that, because even though the host I chose will do all kinds of really cool things, I am not giving my clients exposure to the really cool things that I have to manage and maintain and keep the expectation level high with. Because all they really wanted was the website.
Cool. Great way to end it here. I'll take us out. This has been an episode of Whose WordPress Agency Is This Anyway? With Kurt Van Anen and myself, Mr. Toby Crines. We'll see you next week.